Hey everybody, it's your pal Perch. Let's comic book sales question. I enjoy those. It says, hey Perch, something I've yet to figure out is how the Harry Potter novels could sell to so many ages, cultures, etc., all around the world, with people of all ages, cultures, etc., lining up in scores at midnight releases. And the novels were mostly text with a scattering of typical illustrations. Yet Marvel and DC comics, graphic novels, etc., are still struggling to get any low number of increase of people who even care about their materials. Is it poor marketing, poor storylines, poor skills, writing art, etc., for telling the stories, poor foresight, interest, etc., by those leading the companies, or all these and more? Oh, and by the way, don't shut down your YouTube channel, buy YouTube and make it PerchTube. There'd be so much porn. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. I think a comparison against the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling, is interesting because every now and then, it's not even every now and then, it seems like, fairly regularly, I see people commentating about comic books and talking about how, it's paper and all the cool kids and everybody has gone to digital and it's just, or games or whatever. And, it's not a medium that anyone will go for. And yet, you turn around and you see, this like 2 decades ago now, Harry Potter doing quite well, unless you're one of those people who is very angry at J.K. Rowling. Go figure. But it's not. There's been other things as well, and not even just like people like to make the comparison of manga, but Dogman dick shames them. So does a lot of those books aimed at that crowd. My younger daughter has an absolutely enormous amount of books, some graphic novels, some books. And as long as the book itself is popular, as long as the writer is sparking imagination and kind of getting people excited about immersion, it works just fine. There is no fleeing the printed page. There's no books have to go away. And in many cases, although comic books do a poor job of harnessing it, schools are a good place to do this kind of stuff. Harry Potter was hugely benefited by schools that got kids really interested, whether it's the scholastic stuff or other, putting on events and other things. It became a phenomenon in a lot of cases through the schools. So it can be done. So why aren't comics doing it? Well, you listed a bunch of the reasons. Comics have made a lot of decisions that, in many ways steers itself away from mainstream success. So things like the direct market. Ran a comic store, love comic stores. Being completely locked into a comic store is absurd. It'd be like if you take the Harry Potter stuff, and it's like we're only going to sell it at small independent bookstores. That's the only place. No big box store, no Walmart, no Target, nothing. We're not going to, there's no Barnes and Noble, not going to really do anything online. Maybe we'll send a couple, after 10 years, we'll do a couple of copies there. But that's the equivalent. It's really important that you kind of think about it that way. There's nothing wrong with a local comic shop. It's wonderful. You got free comic book day coming up here in a month or two. And it's the local comic shop is beautiful and it has a definitive place. The back issue market does really well there, and it should, because it's a place where people can go and further immerse. But completely killing off the mainstream channel, if you think about it long enough, you realize how insane this was and how it's forever going to cap comic books' success. When people tell me, what's it going to take for comic books to sell as many copies as, Jim Lee's X-Men back, in the early 90s, the answer is it's got to be outside of comic shops. It has to be. If you don't grow there, first of all, it's a massive volume you're turning away, and second, it's visibility. The audience you want, this great new audience, is going to replace all the comic fans who are dying off in the thousands because they've hit the ripe old age of like late 30s. They're dying. The only way you're going to get those new people is if you have your comics in more places. And I know, I've done this before. I've made this comment many times. And people are like, yes, but returnability. And just it's a factor for sure. Some of those comics got pulped. No doubt about it. Absolutely true. That doesn't really change anything. That doesn't change the fact that it did increase visibility. It was not losing money, and you have to bring it back. To me, that's the linchpin, because if you bring it back and you get it more places, then you've got more stability to this industry, because it's got more spots in which to sell its product. And if it has more spots to sell its product, it's going to have more money by default flowing into the publisher and into the comic companies. And with that are come more stakes. You're going to you're going to be able to afford steaks rather than the ramen that some of these guys can afford, but you're going to be able to afford actual steaks, and the stakes are higher. It allows these comic books to be a more stable business, and with a more stable business comes more stable people. Quite frankly, not always. It's not 1-to-1 late, but when there's more at play, people tend to get a little bit more serious. And so, for all the people who say, well, what about comic book creators should pay attention to their craft and should, not start so many fights, not spend so much time on social media. I mean, yeah, that sounds super. But here's a problem with that. If it's treated and considered like a hobby, if comic books are basically only sold in niche stores like the direct market, and they're not, they do not take them seriously, then why do you expect the creators to be, professional, mature, on top of things? When you're a comic creator and you're selling 100, 200,000 copies of something, you could still be artistic, you could still be wacky. You could still, if you're John Byrne, create an effigy of Jim Shooter and burn him in your backyard. You could still do all those things, but the amount of volume of that stuff goes down significantly because you got work to do, and it's work that has a lot of eyes. The other thing that Harry Potter has is the storytelling itself, and this is my kids took a while for them to get into Harry Potter, and I'd say that one did, the other did not. Really, in any kind of, long-term form. But one thing the Harry Potter stories had, whether you liked them or you didn't like them, is that there was a sense of danger. There was a sense of world building. There's a bigger picture in all this. And it didn't have but we got to score points with Facebook or Twitter. It did not have hey, we've got to get the right demographical mix in this story, or we're in trouble. It felt more like the number one focus of the Harry Potter books was the stories. It was the Harry Potter. It was the adventure. It was the world. It was the villain. It was the threat. It was all these things, and it was written for a younger audience, but it still had a feeling like there was, it was a story first. And when you read some comics, it doesn't have that feeling to it. It feels like, hey, we've got to get over this event, or it feels like the comic is in purpose or in service of something else, whether it's a social thing that people are trying to push, or whether it's an event that nobody really wants, but we're going to vomit out, 40, 60 issues in this thing. That's the problem. By the way, I was seeing somebody complaining about Blood Hunt, the new Marvel event coming up, and they're like, this thing's going to have 40 plus issues in it. Yeah, that's a lot of comics. Don't get me wrong. Tons of comics. You remember Ten of Swords? Remember that event? That was just in the X-Men event. That wasn't even a big sprawling, miniseries or anything. Didn't that had 24, 26, somewhere in that range? Comics? More than half of Blood Hunt. And people ask me, like, why do you think Marvel has gone to excess with some of these events? Yeah, that may be a clue. Anyway, the comic needs to feel like the main story. It needs to feel like it's in service of itself, or it's in service of its readers. It needs to not feel like it's a personal soapbox for the writer. It needs to not feel like its only purpose is to sell you on an event you don't really want. Once it has that feeling to it, you're in a lot of trouble as a comic and as a publisher because it's really hard to get rid of that. People are suspicious of you. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Why does Harry Potter do so well in the book market and people seem to like to turn pages and read things, but we struggle with comics? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.